The story begins at Valkyrie Public School. The principal asked his students if they were ready, and in that case, the qualifying exam begins right now. Everyone as one went to test their abilities against the goblins that needed to be destroyed. And, since the exam was broadcast live, everyone can vote for their favorite. In the comments, people were surprised that everyone was so strong this year, but some were unhappy that they were again given the same task as last year. The principal told the reporters that the results determine their future, and then also asked the students to work hard to get the highest grade and get into the best class. While in the forest, a bunch of goblins didn't suspect anything until one of the students hit the one with his powerful arm. And one of the goblins was cut into pieces by a student with a sword in her hands. And the commentators were shocked by such a warrior, also very cute. And so some commenters even decided to apply to this school to be close to this girl. Soon there was another student who destroyed a goblin with her spear with just one blow. And the commentators also expressed their desire to be close to this girl. The audience was surprised that there were so many beauties this year. There is a hierarchy of strength in this academy. Those who are strong can easily get both fame and wealth. However, there are those who are at the bottom of the food chain. At this moment, the camera is watching a guy in a yellow suit running towards the goblin. He was sure he could win this time, but the goblin stuns the guy with his baton, knocking him to the ground. Yeah, in this school, weaklings hold no value. The guy in the yellow suit was not happy because he was defeated by goblin, but when he noticed the stick, he decided to pick it up, but the system immediately informed him that it was impossible to equip the stick. So it struck him with a lightning discharge. Then, coming face to face with the goblin again, this green monster started beating up the yellow guy. And the commentators felt that this guy was about to die, and therefore this had to be stopped. But still the guy did, because he decided not to give up. He took off his costume, picked up a stick, and then nailed the goblin to death. And that's when the commentators found out that that yellow suit turned out to be an artifact. And that's what the other commenters didn't expect, because it looked really gross, because the guy was completely naked. That's when the protagonist realized that his shame was broadcast all over the country, and that was enough to get him into the lowest class. And that's exactly how his shitty high school life began. Yes, the protagonist's name was Yota Asahi. He was in his first year, but he was in Class E, and his artifact rank was 0, unlike the other students in this academy. At some point, monsters attacked the entire country and created havoc in just a couple years. Usually weapons against them were ineffective and the only way out was to accept your end. It was then that a boy watching the devastation take place saw a deadly dragon that began to emit fire from its maw. And seemingly when the boy thought it was over, they had hope in the form of artifacts. Humans were able to embody weapons from their own souls, thanks to which they were able to resist the monsters. Each soul had a unique weapon, be it a sword, a gauntlet, a staff, or even a shield. This young man's father was a hero who used a shield, and so the boy always wanted to be like his father. But one ill-fated day, they were attacked by a dragon, and so his father ordered Yoda to take Shizuka and run away. He turned around and looked at his son and said that he had a very strong son and therefore he would be able to protect everyone. Asahi, not believing this, started crying but picked himself up and ran towards his friend, took her hand and started running away. Yes, the feeling of helplessness still resurfaces in his mind, and that's why he has been practicing a lot since then. The training was harsh, whether it was heavy rain or heavy physical exertion. At that moment, his father's words were deeply embedded in the young man's mind, but after studying for 6 months at an elite school for warriors, he realized something. At that moment, the red-haired boy wondered when Yoda would finally give up. And since he's nothing, he ordered the young man to buy him some bread and yakisoba at Haku. He also asked him if he wanted to try his milk. But without waiting for an answer, he poured the milk on the boy's face. That's when the young man realized, if you have no talent, your efforts are always rewarded. At that moment, the red-haired guy stuck a sheet on Asahi's back and asked him not to take it off until he got back to class. On that piece of paper was written that Asahi was a shit hero. Holding back his tears, Asahi headed towards the cafeteria. And the students standing around looked at it and laughed, saying that he was beaten like a punching bag again. And as Asahi was walking down the hallway, he stopped as he noticed his longtime childhood friend. And just when a conversation was about to start, the two just walked past. Turning around, the young man revealed that this girl's name was Shizuko Minace. She had been his friend since childhood, and she too had lost the person closest to her that day. All this time they stayed with friends and went through all the hardships together, but upon entering the school, their friendship began to fade away. Shizuka was an excellent student and possessed a powerful sword artifact. Yoda Asahi was just a loser with a costume treasure, but he was still used to the scornful looks. Back in the classroom with the food, a shoe was launched at him. The red-haired guy did it because he wanted Asahi to buy it at Haku. But the guy with glasses wasn't happy about him throwing his shoe at him. Turning around, the young man explained that people who have a low strength and artifact score end up in Class E. These students have no motivation, and the teachers have long since given up on them. And just as Asahi was thinking about his own thoughts, a red-haired guy called out to him, preparing to strike. He didn't realize where Asahi was looking, figuring the young man had lost his fear. In that case, he activated his ability, and so he immediately punched the young man in the stomach. Asahi knew that artifacts could only be used in certain places, but Yoda Asahi's classmates didn't care about school rules. Takayuki Kirimura had the glove artifact, and he didn't understand why Asahi was acting like that, figuring he was doing it on purpose. When Asahi threw up that pain, Takayuki asked Asahi to remember the feeling and not make him remind him of it. Yes, even in Class E, Asahi is at rock bottom. It's been getting beaten up for half a year now. The guy with glasses, laughing nervously, asked Takayuki Kirimura to stop or he'd ruin his bread with yakisoba. In that case, Takayuki felt that his friend was right. Still, while delivering another additional blow to Asahi, he expressed that he really enjoyed beating that kid up. The pink-haired girl noticed that Kirimura was harassing Asahi again, and her friend felt sorry for the poor guy. But still the pink-haired girl didn't understand why he was bothering Asahi. Then her friend explained, because Asahi was the reason why Takayuki became a classy student. After the trial with the goblins was a simulated battle, Asahi was his opponent, but he still did not want to give up and held her in an iron grip. The girl wondered just because of that, then her friend confirmed the hunch, and apparently it was because of inactivity, and therefore he was given a low grade. The pink-haired girl thought Asahi was incredible, but her friend began to laugh, for he had foolishly condemned himself to an eternal beating. Takayuki lifted the young man up. He asked the guy if he realized the situation he was in now. And at the same moment, the system indicated that there were only 10 points left to 10,000. That's when the young man started smiling, which made the guy even angrier, and in that case, he gave the young man a powerful punch, and there were only 9 points left to 10,000. When Asahi took damage, however, he would receive 1 point each time. Soon Takayuki threw the young man into his desk, and he was surprised to see that although Asahi was a weakling, he had a lot of audacity. Takayuki assumed that the usual artifact power was hereditary, and so he expressed his confidence that Asahi's parents also possessed Cespit treasures. At that moment the guy's eyes almost rolled out of his orbits, and meanwhile Takayuki wanted to meet his parents and beat them up just like Asahi. At this point, Asahi started clenching his fist and Takayuki started taunting him to hit him if he could, of course. At this point, Asahi couldn't hold his temper anymore, but suddenly the guy with glasses interrupted this fight saying that it was too much. In that case, taking his friend by his clothes, he wondered if he was defending this trash. The glasses guy of course answered in the negative, for he doesn't care about this trash. In that case, Takayuki ordered his friend to beat him with a chair. And the guy with glasses agreed to do so. Taking an iron chair, he hit Asahi right on the head. Just then, the system reported that all the points had been accumulated. Meanwhile, Takayuki ordered his friend to pick up the bread, and Asahi still continued to lie on the floor like that, saying to himself that he was a weakling, because even after 100 training sessions, his efforts were not rewarded. But it was at this very moment that his artifact increased, for the goal was to receive 10,000 points of damage. The system reported that the weakling's suit had increased to an indomitable suit, and so the young man began to smile. Since he felt that if his efforts were not rewarded, he should just keep going until he reached his goal. After all, he would never give up. This suit has some peculiarities. Asahi only found out about them 6 months ago, after the exam was over. At that moment, he was in the school's underground training portal. The young man recalled his entrance exam, which was horrible as he had to undress to kill a goblin, because the suit didn't even allow him to pick up branches. And if Asahi would do nothing, he would definitely be expelled from the school. Valkyrie is a school that is kept alive by people's taxes. And if a student doesn't have potential, they are expelled. Without the support of the government, students are rendered helpless. And at the moment, Yoda Asahi is one of them, but he is not going to sit idly by. Clenching his fist, the young man realized that he now had a way to improve his artifact. If one constantly used his artifact, its power would increase greatly. But Asahi didn't understand what kind of abilities his artifact had. After all, if this crappy suit was of no use, he would remain a weakling. But right now, he wasn't in a position to give up. And so the young man went into the portal to make himself stronger. But literally in the same minute Asahi was already lying on the ground, and a goblin with a club was slowly approaching him. The young man thought that this was a rather disgusting situation. But still he was sure that it was nothing terrible, because people had to fight such monsters with firearms. Although he still thought that this goblin would be quite difficult to kill with his bare hands. Getting up from the ground, the young man didn't know what he should do next. Should he take off his suit and fight with a stick? That would certainly help, but then the power of his artifact wouldn't increase, so he needed to deal significant damage to the goblin while still wearing the suit. Remembering the moment when he was struck by lightning from taking away his opponent's weapon, the young man immediately rushed towards the goblin, and so the monster brought the baton above his head and hit Asahi, who blocked the blow with his hands in time, and then grabbed the weapon and rolled down. But the system also informed the young man that equipping was impossible because a weak wielder can't use this weapon. But Asahi was not going to give up, for this weapon was only needed to release a lightning effect to thus fry the goblin. At that moment, the boy and the goblin began to fall to the ground, and after lying on the ground, the goblin began to vaporize, leaving behind a small crystal. Asahi was glad he was able to do it, considering he was in a suit. Though he thought about throwing off his skates right there, which was why he no longer wanted to use that method again. Picking up the crystal, the young man was very glad that even after so much suffering he was able to get this tiny magic crystal. Holding the crystal in his hands, it magically disappeared, which surprised the young man. And later, the system reported that the first absorption of the magic stone had been confirmed. The wimpy suit responded to the incredible will of the host. The system window was improved. Added a new quest. Goal: to receive 10,000 damage. At that moment, Asahi realized that his life was still not over. And then 6 months passed. Soon, that momentous day came. The young man was in Valkyrie's dormitory, after all, happy that he could finally make a difference. But still, Asahi didn't know how to do it. In that case, the system started searching for the query upgrade, and then after finding the right information, it informed him that it was possible to control the suit with his voice, and only the owner had this ability. Asahi, having read everything carefully, decided to follow the instructions, and so uttered the word upgrade. Soon the young man's costume began to change, adding black stripes to the yellow suit. That was when Asahi saw the new indomitable suit for the first time. He examined his suit, wondering if it had really changed. But still, he had never heard of an artifact that changed its appearance, plus he wondered if there was any change in his abilities. Asahi opened his status and saw that his strength was 14 points, stamina was 18, reason was 0, and speed was 11. At this moment, he didn't have any skills that he was allowed to use. Asahi came to a standstill as he didn't understand what this was. After all, this was the first time he was seeing something like this. And in fact, the young man would like to see more information. In that case, the system reported that the indomitable suit gives incredible strength and protection to the wearer. Asahi was surprised to see that the suit had such protection. He wasn't sure, of course, but he considered that the defense abilities didn't become better than before. In that case, looking at the time, the young man knew that at this time, the portal was still open, and therefore it was a good time to try out the new suit. Being in another dimension, the goblin was walking around and not touching anyone, but at that moment he was cut by a girl with her powerful sword. It was Shizuka Minae, who felt that goblins were no longer suitable for her training. Soon, she heard some noise, and so she looked around to see Asahi at such a late hour. At that moment, Shizuka was called out by her friend Sachi, who asked what she saw there, and Shizuka said that she only saw an empty space. That's when Sachi laughed, because she remembered that it was the same guy who caused the broadcast to stop. In that case, Shizuka asked her friend to quit school and become a clown if she liked making fun of people. Sachi didn't understand why Shizuka was angry, but her friend expressed that she wasn't. She was just annoyed. She was sure that there was a limit to his stubbornness, but he didn't realize it at all. Looking at her friend, Sachi suddenly thought about why Shizuka hates Asahi so much. And then she remembered one detail, thinking that that young man's suit was a different color and without stripes. At that moment, the young man was standing in front of the goblin who struck at Asahi with his stone dagger. But the young man blocked his attack, happy that the suit's defense had indeed increased. He still took damage though, but thanks to this change, he would be able to take a step forward. At this moment Asahi made an uppercut to the goblin that should fly into space, but as it turned out, this punch was not enough, so the monster grabbed the young man's head and then sealed him to the ground, causing Asahi terrible pain. But that wasn't all. The goblin continued to deal damage to Asahi, who was now trying to defend himself. Although he could withstand all of the goblin's attacks, he was also not winning, and so he thought that things had not gone according to plan. In that case, he decided to try his technique again. But when the young man looked around, he noticed that he was surrounded by a crowd of goblins, so he assumed that these goblins were cloned. That's when Asahi realized that things were bad, because he would definitely die here, because all these goblins started beating the guy, making him a punching bag. At that moment Asahi was in a desperate situation, so he thought to himself that someone would help him. But then he also remembered his father's words, that in a critical situation, it's useless to ask for help. Therefore, Asahi should rely only on himself. His father soothed the crying boy, telling him to be strong, so strong that he could be the hero who could save everyone in a time of need. At that moment, Asahi remembered his not-so-pleasant reception, and so when the goblins attacked the boy, he grabbed the weapon of one of them, and so the system reported that Asahi can't use the weapon. In that case, lightning began to strike the young man's body as well as the goblins, thus frying the two monsters. And when the other goblins were distracted, Asahi was able to escape from the clutches of the monsters. Soon, he stopped and thought that he wouldn't be able to use such a skill anymore. But at that moment, the system reported that the suit had responded to its master's incredible will. Asahi therefore received the skill Revenge. The young man looked at the crowd of goblins, and the system reported that the Revenge skill converted the accumulated damage into power and released it for 10 seconds. And this ability could only be activated once a day. Asahi was surprised that he had some skill, but since the goblins were already running towards him, he had no time to think about it, so he decided to use this ability right now. He shouted the word Revenge, after which the skill was activated, and there was only 10 seconds to use it. In that case, Asahi, without wasting any time, first struck the strongest of the goblins, knocking that one back at the other goblins. With only 5 seconds left, the young man continued to beat up one by one. And when the last second was left, he delivered his critical blow, sealing the goblin to a tree, thus killing it. Soon the time for using the skill was over, and so the young man collapsed on the ground from exhaustion. And the system reported that the Revenge skill could only be used the next day. Looking at the skill, Asahi assumed that this skill could be his trump card in a critical situation, but unfortunately, it could only be used once a day, subject to damage from the opponent. Asahi realized that he would have to use it constantly in the future, but still expressed that he couldn't take damage forever. Besides, he still didn't know all the abilities of his artifact yet. The suit's transformation was very much like an improvement. In addition, the young man felt that his characteristics had also changed. And so, looking at the magic crystal, the young man assumed that if this was a feature of his artifact, then perhaps it would become stronger in the future. Picking up the earth crystal, the suit began to absorb, and the system reported a list of updates as the suit absorbed the crystal. Soon, the system showed Asahi what he would be able to activate in the future, provided he pumped the suit, and so the young man was sure that he would definitely become stronger. After a short break, Asahi continued his pumping, and so he attacked the goblins time after time. This time his prey was a hobgoblin. He jumped on the goblin from above, hitting its blunt head with all his might. Soon the hobgoblin's body began to disappear, and as he picked up the magic crystal, the young man was overjoyed that he could finally defeat the hobgoblin. And since this was the first time the hobgoblin had been killed, the system informed him that Asahi would be given a reward after the upgrade. In any case, after spotting the monster's club, the young man was happy that he could now use it. The reward for killing the hobgoblin was that Asahi could now use the hobgoblin's club, fists, and knife, and he also gained a level 1 hit resistance skill and an adaptation skill with clothing. In addition, his strength increased by 2 points, his stamina by 4 points, and his speed by 2 points. Asahi was very happy about this reward, because now he would be able to transform without taking off his normal clothes. The young man's artifact had improved greatly, and after so many upgrades, it was much stronger. As he updated the list, he gradually improved his suit. This time he unlocked Zeus's ability as he killed 10 regular goblins as well as a hobgoblin, plus he used his suit for 1 hour. These quests are usually focused on killing goblins, and various bonuses are given for successfully completing them. Soon, the young man glared at the level 1 blow resistance skill that mitigates the damage he receives. Asahi realized that this skill was of the defensive type. He already has one attack skill called Revenge, but it can't be used often. At that time, the young man also assumed that in order to get more skills, he needed to improve his suit once more. But the thing is, the young man doesn't know how to do that, and so he assumed that he needed some kind of trigger to do it. Soon Asahi was lying by a tree, thinking about the trigger and how to activate it. He remembered that when he was learning the Revenge skill, he was given a list of upgrades, even though it wasn't available. And perhaps that was how the suit's improvement was shown. Asahi assumed that the trigger was the first crystal absorption, but then realized that it said differently. The system alerted the young man that the indomitable suit had absorbed a magic crystal for the first time, and that the indomitable suit had responded to its master's incredible will. Yes, Asahi knew exactly what it said about incredible will, and those words were firmly planted in his mind. The next day Asahi decided to go to the hospital. He looked into the room where his sister was lying, who was happy that her brother had decided to visit her. He asked Hikari how she was feeling, in which case the girl explained that she was feeling much better. She was sure that she would be discharged from this hospital soon, as she had a lot of energy. And Asahi was glad that his sister was in good spirits. Anyway, looking at their mother, Hikari thought that mom looked much better already, and the young man confirmed his little sister's words. As it turned out, it had been over a decade since Hikari and Asahi's mom had not woken up due to a crystal disease. This disease is caused by the poison of a certain monster, but unfortunately, there is no antidote for it. Asahi's younger sister was also infected with this virus, but thanks to her mom, she got a small amount of poison and therefore is slowly on the mend. In that case, the young man thought that if everything was fine, she too would be discharged next year. But there was only one problem. At that moment, a white-haired man with glasses began to enter the room. So Hikari greeted Jinji-san, which Asahi was not very happy about. Jinji greeted the girl, saying that he was happy to see her. In addition, he even brought her a present, which the girl was very happy about. Jinji also greeted Asahi, saying that he had matured quite a bit since their last meeting. He then asked Asahi to step back and talk in private. The man was buying himself a drink and then asked the young man how long he would have to wait for an answer. As it turned out, the man's full name was Kagura Jinji, and he was the head of the Phoenix Guild that fights monsters. Kagura Jinji said that it was very difficult to provide for his younger sister, who would not recover soon, and to take care of his sick mother, so he asked the young man if he needed money. It turns out that Asahi's father was once a member of the Phoenix Guild, and so they know each other. Jinji asked the boy not to worry, because he knew that the young man wanted to find a way to cure his mother. Asahi gritted his teeth in anger at this moment, because this man only pretends to be kind, but in reality he is a rotten man. Crystals obtained from patients with severe illnesses have the same properties as a magic crystal. Magic crystals are a new source of energy, and these can be obtained from the human body. That's why crystal disease patients are sold at a high price under the pretext of research. And that nasty Kagura Jinji wants to get Asahi's mom, and he doesn't want to help her at all. Therefore, the young man replied again. His answer didn't change. Then the man also suggested that the money his father had left behind was not much left. Kagura Jinji recalled the hospital bills, and so asked Asahi how much longer he would last. Kagura Jinji turned to the young man. He knew that Asahi possessed a low-rank artifact. And therefore, the man knew that the young man wouldn't be able to earn enough money to provide for his family. But Asahi didn't care about that. He wasn't going to sell his mom anyway. So declared to that bastard that he would definitely protect his family, because that's his father's last wish. Anyway, Asahi asked Jinji not to tell his sister about this conversation, but the man had no intention of doing so, as he didn't want Hikari to hate him as well. In any case, the man asked Asahi to contact him if he suddenly changed his mind, and then left with a displeased expression on his face. Entering his sister's room, Asahi's only thought was that he needed to protect his family. Upon entering the room, his sister asked what her little brother was talking to Jinji-san about, but the young man said it was a secret. Asahi's only thought was that he needed to make everything a reality, as well as join the guild and earn a large amount of money. He looked at his lying mother who was gravely ill and thought about the need to become even stronger. No, one must be strong. Soon the young man was walking through the streets of the city. He opened his phone and thought about the fact that the school portal would open soon. And he must not waste a minute. But suddenly the young man heard someone scream. As it turned out, it was his classmate, who asked these guys to get away from her. But the guys were very persistent, so they ordered her to go with them, because they would even pay her well. That's when Asahi realized that they were in the same school. And upon taking a closer look, he realized it was his classmate Akane Yamura. Yamura was yelling at these guys that she didn't want their dirty money. Anyway, Asahi didn't get involved because it wasn't his problem. Meanwhile, Yamura was still asking to let them go, but the guy in the yellow hat didn't understand why she was opposing them since they were just regular guys. The girls in the back wondered, doesn't Yamura realize the position she's in? And the guy in the cap also asked, doesn't Yamura want to enjoy herself? In that case, Yamura said she didn't understand what they wanted from her because it was some kind of misunderstanding. But the guy in the orange hat said that he knew her secret and therefore asked her not to resist if Yamura didn't want the whole school to know about it. He felt that nothing would happen to her from one small shot, especially since she would get a lot of money, plus his older brother admires her since she has big breasts. Therefore, he asked her to be panicky. The girl didn't know what to answer, but at that very moment she just spat in the guy's face and, showing her middle finger, sent him to hell. The girls behind her started laughing, surprised that she did that. But the guy in the hat didn't like it. As such, he started yelling at Akane, asking who did she think she was? After all, he knew she had been sold by her own family. Akane Yamura pushed the guy away from her, telling him not to touch her, after all she still had her dignity. But the red-haired guy was assertive, and thus ordered the girl to go with him immediately. And just when he wanted to touch Akane, Asahi intervened, much to the surprise of everyone else, including the girl herself. She was very surprised, for it was the same Asahi who was the weakest in their class. The hat guy wondered who this guy was. He knew that they were in the same school, and after all the face seemed familiar to him, but still he couldn't remember. That's when the girls remembered that it was that wimpy kid from Class E. And her friend also found out about a Hosher who had a terrible artifact. That's also when the guy in the hat finally remembered that a Hosher had embarrassed himself on live TV. Anyway, the guy apologized to Asahi, but asked him to leave, since they wanted to do something interesting with him. But the young man stood his ground and wouldn't leave, which made the guy in the hat even angrier. So he decided to beat up the trash from Class E. The girl thought Asahi was an idiot, because it was the guys from Class C. So she thought he wouldn't be able to resist them. But at that moment, the young man dodged that attack, and afterwards, he grabbed his hand and kicked the asshole in the stomach with his foot. And as the asshole was falling down, Asahi elbowed him in the back, pinning him to the ground. The girl was very surprised by this, because she didn't understand how this young man had become so strong. In the kickboxing club at Valkyrie High School, there were sparring sessions with the students. Among them was the best student, Shizuka, who was also practicing with her trainer. The trainer tried to strike at the girl, but she dodged and then decided to use her foot to strike, which frightened the man, but it was a good thing the girl stopped, otherwise the trainer would have been very hurt. In any case, he was impressed with the student's speed, expressing confidence that he didn't expect anything else. In that case, Shizuka thanked Coach Takashi for his words and for sparring, but the man didn't even expect the girl's level in taijutsu to increase so much. He praised the girl that her mastery of the artifact was at the highest level, thinking that Shizuka was a very hard worker. But the girl countered that she wasn't, as there was someone who was stronger than her. This surprised Takashi, as he didn't know a person stronger than Shizuka, but the girl stated that this person was her target. And now, that unfortunate choice of target and taijutsu remained her only option. Meanwhile, Asahi and Yamura were still in the alley where the young man had to defend the girl from the attacks of the villains. The girl didn't understand why. She always thought Asahi was weak since he can't overpower Kirimura. But her thoughts were turned by a big guy in a cap who decided to attack the young man. But Asahi intercepted the blow, grabbed the guy's arm and toppled the asshole with all his strength. But one of the rats attacked Asahi from behind, not realizing what kind of guy he was. At the same moment, the young man hit the annoying rat in the stomach with his elbow. And when the rat bent down, Asahi kicked the guy in the head with his foot, thus delighting Akane even more. Still, Akane Yamura's words were confirmed. Asahi was incredible, even though he didn't even have an artifact. Although not too long ago, she had thought him a weakling. Soon, the young man noticed that one of the guys was about to do something, but when Asahi's attention was taken, the guy in the hat stood up and activated his gun skill, and later shot at the young man with all his anger. Asahi noticed the shot and therefore covered himself with his hands to protect his head from the consequences. But because the force of the shot was so great, he was thrown backwards. Asahi was able to stop himself using his claws like a wolverine, which the guy in the hat didn't realize, because the shot had no effect on him. In order to finish this asshole off quickly, Asahi decided to activate his artifact, but he was interrupted by people who noticed something strange in the alley. The people noticed that the guy in the hat was using his artifact in the wrong place, so they decided to call the police. The girls who were with these guys decided to leave the place as soon as possible, or else they would also get in trouble. In any case, they all had to flee from the place, but the guy in the hat stated that he had memorized Asahi, and therefore he would be the end of him. As Asahi looked at his hand, however, Yamura inquired about the young man's well-being since he had been shot. In that case, the young man expressed that he was fine, which of course surprised the girl, and therefore she thought that the shot wasn't as strong as she thought it would be, since there was no damage on the young man's body. In any case, the young man decided to go about his business, but Akane asked Asahi not to leave, for she didn't understand why the young man didn't ask if she was involved. In that case, the young man asked if Akane really wanted him to listen to her? But the girl answered in the negative, she just wants the young man to give her some time. In the end, Asahi said that it's okay, since he's not interested in such things. But in that case, the girl didn't understand why he saved her since she hadn't helped him in any way before. Asahi looked at the girl and later at the bouquet itself, and then assumed that the girl was going to visit someone, and if that was the case, she should hurry up. The girl didn't know what to say. After all, she thought he was pathetic when he was beaten up. However, now Akane started to think that Asahi turned out to be a good guy. Soon the young man was walking through the school corridors, where he was greeted by Akane Yamura, to which the young man was a little surprised. In any case, she had forgotten to thank the young man for saving her yesterday, so she decided to say thank you today. At that moment, Yamura's friend was walking behind her, who was shocked that something had happened to her friend. And seemingly when nothing should happen, there was a gunshot that hit Asahi's head. The young man started rolling on the floor, throwing his bag away. Soon a trio of guys that Asahi had beaten not too long ago showed up, and this shot was fired by the guy in the hat. With a haughty smile, he asked Asahi, did he really think they wouldn't touch him at school? Yamura's friend started laughing again, because she didn't understand why these guys were attacking Asahi. At this point, Yamura thought it was all because of her, so she tried to protect the young man by saying that she was here, but the guy in the hat didn't need the girl anymore, so he ordered her to get out of the way. The guy in the hat was upset because yesterday he had to interrupt the fun because of trash like Asahi, but since he was here, there would be no more excuses. But Asahi only sighed as the guy with the hat was harassing the E-class people again. This made the guy angry, and so he hit the young man on the head. But our boy is not a timid guy either, so he stood up and decided to kick him, because Shizuka wants to be better than Asahi for a reason, since Asahi is a kickboxer. In any case, the attack failed, as the big guy with his huge golden hand stood up to defend the guy in the hat. He thought that it was useless, because if Asahi had a decent artifact, he wouldn't be the dregs of the school, so the big guy decided to grab Asahi's leg. A guy in a hat came up to him to say all sorts of nasty things to the young man, that he had done something there yesterday for nothing, and therefore the guy in the hat would bully Asahi until graduation. But after saying that, a punch came from Akane Yamura on the boy's back. She felt that the guy had gone too far, and so she ordered for it all to stop. But her friend didn't realize what Akane was doing. This both angered and surprised the guy at the same time. The guy asked Akane, so your artifact compresses air and shoots it? In that case, the guy expressed that there was a huge difference between the two. And therefore, he would show the big difference in their artifacts by firing a shot at Asahi right in the stomach, after which he immediately flew aside and fell to the floor. Akane was angry at the bastard, for she didn't understand what he was even doing. But the guy asked the girl to relax, since she wouldn't be able to make a shot like that. Soon Takayuki and his bespectacled friend appeared around the corner and noticed something wrong in the corridor, namely Asahi lying there, thinking that he wasn't hurt at all. He remembered that last time he wasn't in the suit either, but his defense had increased. Therefore, the young man assumed that the abilities were not the artifacts, but his own. In that case, if this status showed his characteristics, then there was something to try. Yes, Asahi decided to use the revenge skill. He was very surprised that he was able to activate this skill, and so gathering all his strength into a fist, he rushed forward, expressing his confidence that he was not a weakling now. Asahi landed a devastating blow on the big man's huge golden arm. And that punch was so strong that the big guy immediately went flying against the wall. This power surprised everyone around him, including Takayuki and the guy in the hat, who didn't understand how it happened, because he knew that the big guy's artifact should be able to repel direct attacks. No, that's not important. What's more important is that Asahi is laughing at the hat guy's artifact. Soon, the young man noticed that the big guy was starting to back away from a strong headbutt. He explained that it had been too sudden, and he hadn't had time to react, so it wouldn't happen again. This immediately encouraged the guy in the hat, as he thought that the reason Asahi was still on his feet was because he hadn't been hit in the solar plexus. That's when Asahi realized that he didn't have enough punches on him, and therefore the punch itself was weak. In any case, the young man didn't know what to do, since he had already used his trump card. But still, Asahi came to the conclusion that he was tired of being insignificant, so he prepared for the fight. But the fight was interrupted by the teacher, who asked what they were doing here all morning. In that case, with no other choice, the three boys decided to leave, much to Akane Yamura's relief, but her friend wasn't happy about it. Takayuki was in his own repertoire. He just laughed that even a weakling could be so stubborn, and therefore thought he didn't need to be careful not to get maimed. But the bespectacled friend countered that Takayuki Kirimura was wrong, because a giant hand was not the type of artifact that could be defeated just like that. Looking at Asahi, the bespectacled guy realized that the Class C opponents were not really hurt, but Asahi wasn't the same. When it was lunchtime, Asahi was sitting in the restroom at this moment, thinking that his artifact was meant to strengthen his suit, but he thought that it was no longer the case. After all, Asahi now knew for sure that his artifact made him stronger. He assumed that the skills written here were effective even without the suit, but he didn't understand why. Though Asahi didn't really care about that, since he's still wearing the suit as well, and therefore it doesn't matter. And the biggest problem is that he's rather weak. If his artifact remains in this state, it will be sad. But the young man didn't understand how to improve it? After leaving the restroom, Takayuki's voice was heard behind him, joking about how if Asahi wanted to go to the restroom, he could have warned him. Anyway, he wanted to praise Asahi for what he had done this morning. He assumed it was pretty cool, but for some reason he activated his gauntlet and punched Asahi in the stomach, then called the young man an idiot and ordered him to buy him food. From the look on Asahi's face, he was determined to show his strength to this bully, and the bespectacled boy was of the same opinion, because he realized that after such a blow from Kirimura, Asahi was no longer in pain, so he was sure that his classmate was hiding something. Meanwhile, Asahi realized that he would no longer be able to use the revenge skill today. But anyway, Asahi decided to try, but it was at that moment that Akane Yamura intervened and asked them to stop. Takayuki wondered what the girl needed? But Yamura wasn't addressing the bully. In that case, Takayuki remembered that she was the one who had covered for Asahi back in the morning, so he couldn't believe that the girl was protecting a scumbag like Asahi. The girl wouldn't tolerate such behavior from a bully, so she explained to him that he only knew how to imitate others, or was there some other meaning to it? In fact, she even suggested that Takayuki was humiliating the weak to please the girls, calling Takayuki Kirimura just cheap. This of course made the guy angry, but still he decided to just walk away from this company of trash. In any case, the girl asked if the young man was alright, and Asahi answered in the affirmative. Then the girl explained that she couldn't help him anymore, so he had to deal with him on his own. But Asahi didn't understand why the girl did that. Yamura explained that it was her fault that he was being picked on by the guys from Class C, so she decided to apologize in this way. The boy asked her not to worry, as he was the one who got involved in their fight, which of course pleased her, so she decided to tell him about her father, that he was fighting on the front lines against monsters from another world. But still a terrible thing happened. When she was little, he was attacked by monsters, and since then he still hasn't woken up and is still lying in a hospital bed. Soon they had money problems, and so to feed them, her mom started selling her body. Soon Yamura's mom started getting weirder and weirder every day, and she started bringing new men almost every day. Her mom got so addicted to it, and before Yamura graduated from high school, she made her sell her own body. The girl told all this with a special sadness, and although she is grateful to her mother that she raised her, but still she hates her with all her soul, and for this reason Akane ran away to this school. She wants to become a warrior and fight on the front lines of the battlefield and earn some money. But unfortunately she ended up in Class E, and if this continues, her future will be doomed. The girl didn't understand how those guys knew about it, but yesterday they wanted to have fun with her for money, and those guys were very persistent. Listening to the story carefully, the young man still didn't understand why she shared this with him. In that case, the girl explained that Asahi was himself involved in her problems. Besides, she did not like to stay in debt. And so with a smile on her face she asked, "You didn't want to hear about it, did you?" And the young man also smiled. Actually, the girl thought that the guys from Class C would come at lunch break, but the boy also noticed that they weren't there. In any case, the girl asked Asahi to take care of himself, because now they might catch him after class. And as the girl was leaving, she playfully raised her leg and asked the young man to call her Yamura. Meanwhile, in the hallway of the school, Takayuki was strolling along with his friend. The bully was surprised that Yamura had shown up so unexpectedly, and the bespectacled boy was also surprised, plus they had also met Asahi. Either way, Takayuki decided to teach the trash Asahi a lesson, and his friend was okay with that. The bully even offered to call Asahi over so no one would see or bother them. But at that moment, his friend was distracted by something. Looking out the window, he noticed Akane's friend, whose name was Minamura, and for some reason she was with the guys from Class C. He remembered that Yamura had some problems with that class, but Yamura and Minamura were good friends. Anyway, the guy with the glasses apologized to his friend, saying that he forgot his wallet in the cafeteria, so he asked Takayuki to go without him. The bully looked at his friend and didn't understand what was wrong with him. Soon the young man began to follow the company of guys where Minamura was. He figured that the girl must be angry that they were hurting Akane Yamura, and if that was the case, then Minamura was in danger. The girl was not happy from the guys. After all, she did everything right and they screwed up. The guy in the hat stated that there was no need to scold him since he had already received his punishment. Minamura then suggested that he was punished by the elder. The guy explained that he told his elder that he was interrupted when he was doing a request, especially since Yamura was fighting back hard. The girl couldn't believe that Yamura had fought back, so she asked him if he was sure. He said he couldn't say for sure, and Minamura had told him that she had run away to that school. At that moment, the guy with the glasses overheard the conversation and was shocked by what he heard. Minamura thought that Akane should have given up and sold her body quietly, in which case the guy in the hat thought that Minamura was a terrible friend. Yeah, she's Akane Yamura's friend, and that's why she was kind enough to give her clients. Speaking of which, I just noticed that each person has a unique mark on their hand, which is pretty cool, so I pay a lot of attention to people's hands. Anyway, the girl explained that this school is full of students who have money problems, and that's why she helps them. And she doesn't even doubt that Akane will be grateful to her. But the guy thought that was ridiculous, since the girl was just using her artifact to make him think that. But Minamura, holding her artifact, said that's not true, because her artifact is what makes her life easier. Oh, you two-faced bitch. As it turns out, she was even controlling these guys. The guy in the hat noticed this, and so he asked the girl to stop and not play with his friend. Anyway, one of the guys asked, if she had such a cool artifact, why was she in Class E? The girl said that there's nothing she can do about it, because you need strength to attack, and there are monsters that her artifact doesn't work on. Anyway, the guy asked if her artifact could be used again. And the girl answered in the affirmative. When the bespectacled guy was still standing against the wall and eavesdropping, the guy in the hat said that he wouldn't fail this time, and the girl praised him for his consideration. After all, Minamura didn't know how the elder would react to failure, but it would definitely ruin their lives. The guys understood this perfectly well, and so they decided that they would meet again tomorrow. At that moment, the bespectacled guy realized that he had just overheard a rather unpleasant conversation. He wondered what he was going to do now, since he couldn't stop the Class C guys. And if Elder shows up, then Kirimura definitely can't, because he's weaker and won't be able to defeat them. But then the guy also remembered how Asahi felled that guy with the golden arm, and therefore was sure he could do it. Soon evening came and Yamura sat in the classroom all alone. She remembered her father the hero. But he kept saying he wasn't, but the little girl thought he was a hero because her dad was so strong. At that moment, this family was very happy, because her father was fine, and Yamura's mom didn't sell her body. Basically, the father informed his daughter that a hero is someone who fights without caring, and he was different. He assured his daughter that if you can only protect yourself, it's okay. He smiled widely at his daughter, saying that if a man sticks to any one position, strong. And so he asked Akane to keep that in mind. Soon tragedy struck, and Akane's father was seriously injured, so he needed urgent treatment. The mother and daughter couldn't believe that this could happen, and the doctor said that they had saved his life, but he might not wake up at all. These words shocked the girl. She could not believe what was happening. Akane's mother returned to the hospital from another party with her men. She started to light a cigarette, but Yamura objected that there was no smoking in the ward. As she smoked the stuff, her mother realized that her husband still hadn't woken up, so she kicked his bed, because he had promised that he would always protect them, but now her husband was a useless piece of trash that they now had to survive because of. That's when Akane asked her mother to stop, but she was sure she was right because his hospital bills were costing them a lot. In that case, the mother informed her daughter that after high school, she would have to work like her and then walked away, leaving Yamura with these thoughts. But still the girl knew that there was one way to cure her father. There is a basilisk in the other world, and its liver has healing properties. They say it can cure any disease. But unfortunately, it's very rare. But the girl was determined to get her hands on this thing by any means necessary. And for this reason, Akane Yamura decided to enter the Valkyrie Academy. Sitting in her office, the girl didn't know what to do, because when she entered Class E, she had almost given up on her goal. Yamura was sure that if she fought she might get hurt, but still she wondered if she could become like Yoda Asahi. Soon, Yamura walked out of the office, where Minamura, who was holding her artifact behind her back, walked towards her. Just then, Minamura told her friend that she would like to talk to her. The bespectacled guy had finally found Asahi, who would be leaving school soon, and if he didn't call him now, nothing would work out. But still, the guy didn't understand why him? After all, it had nothing to do with him. At the same moment, Asahi asked his classmate what he needed and thus frightened him. Asahi figured that the bespectacled guy usually went along with Kirimura, and he did, but this time the guy decided to say something to Asahi. He understood that this was his chance, but still he didn't know how to tell him, because all this time he and Kirimura had been bullying him, and therefore he can't ask for a favor. In that case, Asahi decided to leave if his classmate didn't need anything, and his classmate didn't even know what to say. Soon he saw the girls whereover Akane Yamura had already been affected by Minamura's artifact, who now looked so aloof because of the control skill. The guy gritted his teeth and closed his eyes, thinking it had nothing to do with him. But still his justice was above him, and so he ran towards the girls. And that's when Asahi turned around, considering that his classmate was behaving strangely. Soon, in some abandoned place, the group of people had already met the man in charge, where he asked Kami if everything was all right. By the way, why is it that if there's some scumbag, there has to be some girl sitting with him? Can't you think of something else? All in all, Kami explained that everything would be fine, but the ringleader wasn't so sure about that, since the deal hadn't gone so smoothly yesterday. But the guy in the hat still asked the older man to calm down, because today everything would go smoothly, and in that case, the ringleader was glad of it, lighting another cigarette. He decided to believe the guy's words, and then they would even make some money. Soon someone's silhouette appeared at the door. It was Minamura along with his girlfriend Akane Yamura, who was currently under Minamura's control. The ringleader was glad that the girl had finally arrived, but the girl apologized for being a little late. The ringleader inquired, was she allowed to use her artifact? In that case, the girl explained that there was nothing she could do about it, as it was the best way to get her here. The red-haired girl approached Yamura and inquired if this was the girlish Ijima was talking about, calling her a cutie. Minamura said that she was, and she was very hard to convince. In any case, the red-haired girl assumed that the ringleader wanted to make this girl his. That man certainly liked her at first sight, but still he didn't want to keep his children with him. And touching the girl and looking intently into her eyes, he wanted to try this girl and later will give to the buyer because she looks so cute and therefore will be easy to sell. At that moment, Akane was accosted by her friend, calling Akane cute and then asking if it was true that she wanted to follow such orders to make more money. And the girl confirmed Minamura's words by saying that she needed the money. At the same moment, the ringleader praised the girl for her incredible artifact, and Minamura expressed that Akane doesn't understand anything right now. But anyway, the elder noticed that they had a ratty little rat in the building. He asked the girl to be careful as she was being followed, which the girl of course didn't believe. The bespectacled guy was trembling with fear at this point, assuming he was finished. He really didn't understand why he had come here, since the ringleader was a very strong opponent, and there was no way he could defeat him. In that case, he decided that he should run away. But at the same moment, Minamura noticed that it was her classmate Hakone. Oh yeah, now we know the name of that bespectacled guy. In any case, the ringleader inquired if she knew him. Minamura explained that he was her classmate, but asked her not to worry about him. She asked Hakone not to run away, because as she remembered, he wanted to join their group. But the boy, frightened, replied that he didn't want to. But it was too late. Minamura, using her artifact, said that Hakone had said himself that he wanted to be in their group. At that moment, the guy's mind was clouded, and so he obeyed and said yes. The ringleader felt that they might be in trouble if they were exposed, and so he asked the girl to make him their accomplice. The girl agreed, in which case she asked Hakone to undress Akane, and the guy didn't resist. And so that they would have proof, the guy with the potty hairstyle decided to videotape the whole thing. Hakone couldn't do anything because of this control. He understood his actions, but he couldn't stop it. Still, he wondered why he always acted like this. The guy called himself two-faced, because while he had a sense of justice, he was always on the side of the bad guys. Hakone understood that it was much easier for him not to resist the circumstances, and besides, he couldn't apologize afterwards and say he had no choice. But thinking back to Asahi, the guy knew he wasn't like that. And just when Hakone was about to undress the girl, Asahi's foot flew into his face, which threw the guy backwards, thus pulling him out of his state of control. Hinamura was surprised that Asahi had come after all. And Akane, who was standing behind her, slowly began to come to her senses, for in front of her was Asahi himself, who had come to her rescue. Oh yeah, it's going to be a bloodbath. Anyway, the girl wondered why on earth he had come here holding his artifact. That's when Bandit asked the girl, who was that guy? Minamura explained that it was also a classmate from Class E, calling Asahi the wimpy one. In that case, he didn't understand why all the losers were coming here. The girl, on the other hand, once again started laughing, saying that Asahi would soon hear a funeral march. Using her artifact, she began to spell out the words, something that Asahi wouldn't be able to help someone who was in trouble. And now the young man wanted to join their company. But Asahi really didn't understand why she was doing this. He thought that she and Akane were friends, but then why? At this point, the girl was surprised, mouthing her words again about the young man wanting to join them since they are friends. Asahi asked Minamura if she knew about Akane's problems. The girl then clarified that she had delivered her work for that very reason, saying that it was very nice of her. But Hakone, trembling with fear, declared that it was a lie. He asked Asahi to be careful because Akane Yamura was different now. The disgruntled Minamura was very angry because Asahi's punch had brought this bespectacled guy to his senses. And anyway, she didn't understand when her artifact would start working on the guy. She didn't know when her artifact was going to work on him. In any case, Hakone didn't understand why Asahi had come here since he hadn't told him anything about it. But Asahi felt that this was what his classmate wanted. Besides, he was well aware of the fact that Hakone was reluctant to do all these actions since they were someone else's orders, and so he asked him to tell him everything and he would listen to him. At this point Kami started laughing, not realizing what kind of hero had shown up here. He wondered why Asahi was so tight-lipped. The guy in the hat was sure that even though Asahi had managed to escape from them twice, his luck had run out this time. So he took out his gun and shouted that there would be no third time, and then fired at the young man. But Asahi, not moving from his seat, blocked the shot with only one hand, from which the bullet ricocheted into the ceiling. Minamura and the ringleader went into shock, and the guy in the hat again didn't realize what had happened. But still considered the trash guy lucky, as he just swung his arm and his shot burst. But the ringleader called Kami an idiot, expressing his belief that such a trick couldn't just be done. He asked the girl what his trick was? And Minamura replied that she was sure Asahi had no powers. But the ringleader knew for sure that there were no artifacts without abilities, so he was sure that the young man was definitely hiding something. In any case, the girl didn't understand why her artifact didn't work. She used her powers again, but she didn't understand why. After all, even the strongest people couldn't resist her artifact. And that's when the system reported that Asahi had a passive skill, level 1 mental attack resistance, which blocks any mental attacks. And as Asahi's vigilance waned, a guy with a golden arm appeared behind him and decided to stamp the young man into the ground, but he quickly dodged the attack by jumping aside. The big guy was upset that he didn't succeed, in which case Asahi, gritting his teeth, didn't understand why they were doing this. Why use artifacts to harm others? He shouted that artifacts should be used to protect the people from monsters with them. But then those same people started laughing at Asahi's words, calling him a naive boy. But Asahi didn't understand what he had said that was so strange. In that case, the ringleader decided to tell about the rules of this world. In this world, only a few people can get approval from the government and join guilds, and the rest of the people can't even feed themselves. The leader thought that it was a waste of time. There was no point in trying for these artifacts. There was no way to get rich that way. Asahi began his transformation. He was very, very angry that they were hunting people who were doing their best for money. The leader just smiled at him and said that he wasn't interested in anyone, and he didn't understand why it was taking Asahi so long to realize the truth, because many people in the world thought the same thing. He pointed at Minamura, saying that she sold her friend just for the money, and it was the right decision. The arrogant ringleader decided that there was no guarantee that they could join the guild, and therefore only losers tried their best. These words made the young man very angry, and so he lunged forward at his opponent. Attempting to strike, he was blocked by a huge golden hand. In that case, the ringleader thought that Asahi was not a bad opponent, but it seemed that was all the young man was capable of. Asahi was very angry since this ringleader thinks this is normal. Asahi kept throwing punches and thought that this blonde man looked like the asshole who decided to buy his mom. But the young man didn't realize how many people he was willing to torture to satisfy himself. He knew that many had the same situation as him or Yamura, but everyone was just using them. But why? Because they are weak? The young man thought to himself. At this moment, the young man was very angry, because the whole damn thing was just so damn stupid. Finally, in a moment of anger, the system reported that the suit had responded to Asahi's anger boiling up inside it, hence the forced upgrade was being triggered. And when Asahi's next strike reached the golden arm, the big guy flew into the wall at that moment, thus destroying it, as the blow was very strong. Looking at the whole rabble of scoundrels, he asked them, "Is it bad to be a wimp?" Asahi thought that the ringleader was talking complete nonsense, and therefore he would fight to the very end until people like them disappeared. Yes, that was when the system reported that the user's anger was turning into a huge force. Everyone was shocked by Asahi's outgoing power. Hakone was surprised that his classmate's costume had changed a lot. In that case, the ringleader thought that this was the young man's true strength, but after looking at Hinamura's face, he realized that it wasn't. At this moment, the young man was already near the ringleader to strike him with all his strength, but the latter successfully dodged the attack, only slightly hitting him. The older man decided to kick the young man, but Asahi stepped back to avoid getting hit. The girl was shocked, and the ringleader couldn't understand, had his strength increased because of this suit? But that's impossible, he thought. But anyway, the ringleader thought Asahi was getting excited early. He activated his skill, took out a bottle, poured the water on his hand, and explained to the young man that he had dropped out of school, but he used to be in the B class. And so at this moment, they had a big difference in strength. At this moment, he summoned water and released water spears at Asahi, but he easily blocked all the projectiles flying at him. This angered the leader even more, as the young man blocked his attack, especially since he was moving better than before, but again he thought it was impossible. That's cool, but the leader explained that the young man lacked experience, so water appeared behind Asahi and bound him as if it were a rope. The ringleader reminded the young man that the enemy could use similar tricks, and so he immediately began beating Asahi as hard as he could. The ringleader even thought he was caught in a snow avalanche. He explained that his artifact was perfect for this, and he could freely manipulate his artifact by running water through it. And holding a blob of water in his hand, he deemed that he was a dangerous opponent for Asahi and launched a water arrow at Asahi at the same second. But fortunately, the arrow didn't make it, as it was blocked by another attack. Turning around, the villain noticed that the girl had already woken up. Akane was very angry. She held up her artifact, saying that it wouldn't be able to control her forever. But Hakone thought the classmate was terrible since he was the one who tried to wake her up. In that case, the girl apologized since it was her reflexes. Minamura was also unhappy that Akane was awake and thus decided to use her artifact again. But Akane shot her artifact with her weapon, much to Minamura's displeasure. Akane asked her friend why she did that to her. Minamura thought that her friend really didn't understand anything, and so she explained that Akane was the one who wanted it, because it brings her money. These words upset the girl very much, but Minamura was sure that Akane was also using this trash for her own purpose, and therefore she should be grateful to her. At this moment Akane couldn't hold herself anymore, but as soon as she decided to fight back, she was hit by Kami's projectile, who felt very sorry for the girl. At this moment, both Asahi and Akane were unable to resist these bandits in any way. Therefore, the ringleader thought that it was over, and he would brainwash him later. He also turned to Minamura, because without her artifact it would be problematic. At that moment, the barely standing Akane took her weapon in her hands. She was very angry, for there was nothing she could do, having said that scum were useless. But still, with hope and tears in her eyes, she will try her best, and therefore she will definitely show that she has become stronger. And so, with a shot, she hit the ringleader, and therefore the water bands were no longer under the blonde man's control, thus freeing Asahi. Anyway, with tears in her eyes, the girl asked, could she rely on him now? At that moment, Asahi smiled, and then told her to leave it to him. But the ringleader called the young man an idiot, for he would be able to restrain him again at any moment, and so he restrained the young man with his water slings. But at the same time the young man activated the skill Revenge, and after immediately freed himself from the shackles. This surprised the asshole, but Asahi ordered the ringleader to shut up, for they can't be beaten even if they are E-class. At this point, the blonde started attacking the young man with his water, but Asahi fought off each shot. Besides, he wondered, if they were at the bottom, then why was he having such a hard time with them? Things were bad. The ringleader didn't understand why it wasn't working for him. He tripped over his own bottle, and afterward Asahi loomed over him with his terrifying aura. Preparing his fist, Asahi said he would show him strength, the strength of weaklings. The ringleader asked him to stop, but it was too late. Asahi gave him his crushing blow right to his head, not giving him a chance to defend himself. Asahi threw a final punch, knocking the ringleader to the ground, which surprised the sneaky Miyamura. The young man wanted to throw a couple more punches, but Yamura stopped him, thinking that the asshole had had enough, especially since the latter had been out for a while. Asahi stood beside the unconscious body of the leader, and the guy in the hat couldn't believe that his leader would lose. Having no other choice, the guy decided to shoot Asahi, but the young man noticed the shot in time, and therefore covered himself with his arm to prevent the shot from hitting him. Soon Asahi began to approach the guy in the hat furiously, and the latter wondered if it was not an accident. Asahi grabbed the guy by his clothes, and then with all his menacing look ordered the guy in the hat to stay away from them, because he didn't have much free time to waste on a rabble like this gang. The guy in the hat had already pissed his pants, and so he agreed with Asahi's words out of fear, and so the young man threw the bastard down. Soon, he headed away from that bastard and then passed by Miyamura, who was shaking with fear. Akane Yamura was breathing rather heavily as she remembered her father's words that a person who adheres to any one faith is strong. She glanced at Asahi, and afterward they exchanged a joyful gesture that they had succeeded. As it turned out, this whole situation was being filmed on her phone by the girl behind the pillar. She asked the principal how he felt about the situation. The principal informed her that their school doesn't want anyone who goes too far and therefore asked the girl to handle the whole thing. The principal finally found out who was ruining their school's reputation, but he also discovered something interesting. He had his eye on young Asahi, and so he is looking forward to the next exam to see what this young man can do. A crowd of students had gathered at Valkyrie Academy, who were shocked by what they saw. It was the news of the expulsion of 4 students. They were 3 students from Class C: Koichi Tanuma, Daimon Tsunayoshi, Tamaharu Sum, and Minimura Kaoru from Class E. Those who were expelled today will never attend Valkyrie High School in the future. It is forbidden for them to enter. If anyone finds them on the school grounds, they should report it to the police immediately. Akane and Asahi were also in the crowd. Akane wondered if the young man had expected such a thing to happen. But Asahi couldn't even guess that such a thing could happen, as the most he could think was that they would just be punished. Soon Takayuki and Hakone appeared in the hallway, and Akane reported that those guys had a bad reputation, except for Kaoru, of course. Takayuki, by the way, didn't understand what all the fuss was about, which Hakone didn't understand either. All in all, the bully decided to go to the dining hall since he was very hungry. Hakone looked at Asahi and then went to get Takayuki. Asahi hoped that Hakone would someday become normal with them. But Akane felt that some things would never change, because when she thanked him, Hakone said that he didn't do anything and then left right after. Asahi understood everything and therefore headed to the dining hall since it was recess. In that case, the girl followed him, much to the young man's surprise, as he didn't understand why Akane would go with him, since she had her bento with her. In that case, the girl happily informed Asahi that she would very much like to have lunch together. This, of course, made the guy a little embarrassed, but still he agreed to the request to have lunch together. Soon, this cute-looking couple was having lunch under a tree, sitting on a bench. Akane became curious about his artifact. She inquired about his suit with extra features, assuming that the suit increased his stamina. But Asahi thought that the girl had the same thing with her artifact. In any case, Akane Yamura realized that the stamina option the suit had originally had, but it was too weak, and the young man confirmed the girl's guess. While eating his delicious bun, he thought about the fact that he didn't have time to check his system yesterday as he was very angry. At that moment, his system showed a new update. His stamina as well as strength had been increased, plus Asahi had gotten a new skill, Fist of Fury. The young man realized that the suit of rage complemented his attack power, and that was what he needed. He knew that the evolution of suits came from emotions, but unfortunately Asahi doesn't know the conditions for the next upgrade. But at this rate, his suit will gradually improve. After eating his delicious bun and squeezing the bag, Asahi was determined that he needed to become even stronger. At this moment, the girl put down her bento, got up from the bench, and then declared that she also wanted to take a special training session. Thinking back to those guys, she realized that she couldn't grow as much as Asahi, but still she wanted to get stronger too. She said that she would try her best, but Asahi knew it himself, which immediately surprised the girl. Yoda Asahi told her friend that as long as she used her artifact, her physical abilities would improve along with her strength and skill level. He reminded her that Akane had gotten away with a minor injury after that shot, which meant she was considerably stronger. Those words immediately made the girl feel embarrassed, and her leg began to throb. But still, Akane Yamura expressed that she was still not strong enough. And so she repeated her words that she promised to show Asahi how strong she could become. And holding out her hand, she thanked our boy for yesterday with a happy smile on her face. As they shook hands, Shizuka watched them. She thought the two looked good together and asked her friend if she agreed. Looking down at her friend, Shizuka, told her that it would be reckless if she were to retake the exam. In any case, Sachi decided to refrain from such a suggestion. As she left, the girl asked her friend to think carefully. After all, there was still time. Sachi, looking at Shizuka leaving, thought about the fact that she was in contact with students who were expelled from the school, about whom there were constantly bad rumors. She was sure that Shizuka knew about it, but still, weren't they defeated by someone stronger than them? She looked at the cute couple Asahi and Akane and then at her friend Shizuka, finding her to be so dangerous at times. Soon, in the school's stadium, the head of Class E, Takashima Gonzo, was shouting to his students that they should train their bodies hard. He watched as the weakest students practiced sports. Takashima also said that there were many ways to improve artifacts, but developing physical ability was often the impetus for growth. He realized that they were all inferior to the others in strength, but he was still confident that the boys had a chance. Indeed, the guys had trained hard, and now they had a chance to show that their classification was wrong. At this moment, a smile never left Asahi's face as he realized that he was getting even stronger. But behind him stood Takayuki, who was not happy about something. Soon, the teacher informed his students that there would be a retake exam soon. He warned the boys that if they couldn't change their grade, they would never be able to get out of Class E again. Takashima Gonzo decided to encourage his students by telling them to keep their hands up even if their artifact level was low. He explained that the artifact grade did not depend on their artifact, as their physical ability and intelligence were taken into account. Soon the teacher announced another big news, the fact that this year's exam would be teamwork. Many were unhappy with this news, especially Takayuki, as he was definitely not made for teamwork. Hakone wondered how the distribution would be done. In this case, the teacher said that there could be a maximum of 5 people in a team. But there would be no distribution, so they had to put together their own team, and besides, the class did not matter. This news, of course, shocked the kids, as they realized that no one would want to be on a team with a student from Class E. But Takashima Gonzo informed that this is a challenge where they can meet new people. He also said that the school's mission is to send excellent warriors for the country to the guild, and therefore one should not forget that they will have to cooperate with other people in the guild. He explained that Class E was originally low potential, and therefore if they wanted to get out, they would have to try harder. But Takayuki wasn't happy about that. He was well aware that it was impossible since he was in Class E. He looked at Asahi, because he thought that he only got here because of that stupid trash that got in his way. Soon it was lunch break, and Akane Yamura didn't know what they should do now. Asahi didn't understand what she meant. In that case, the girl explained that they needed to find participants for the certification, and ideally 2 in the back and 2 in the front. But their conversation was soon interrupted by Takayuki, who felt that only an idiot would want to team up with a weakling. The girl asked the bully if he needed anything, but Takayuki replied, no. At the same moment, he grabbed Asahi by his clothes, figuring that the young man was feeling much better lately. But anyway, Takayuki once again turned on his inner idiot, and thus asked Asahi to buy him some food. Asahi glared at the bully and was about to fight back, but just as suddenly Akane intervened and asked Takayuki to buy his own food. This made the guy angry. He noticed that she and Asahi often hung out together, but still didn't understand why she would team up with him after Minamura was expelled. But the girl didn't understand what the bully was talking about. She expressed that Asahi was much better than him and Takayuki wasn't really suited for teamwork. This made the guy angry again, so the girl asked Hakone what he thought about it. But at this point the bespectacled one was sweating all over, since the girl asks inappropriate questions when Takayuki is around. At that moment, Takayuki looked at Hakone with an angry look and then, taking him by his clothes, asked him if he really had such an opinion of him. Hakone was shaking with fear, and having no other choice, he said that he had no reason to think so, and therefore he wanted to team up with Takayuki, and the bully thought it was a good decision. Takayuki drew the girl's attention to the bespectacled guy's words, the fact that he wished to be with him. But then Takayuki looked at Hakone, noticing the strange behavior in him. Anyway, the girl closed her bento and asked the guys to discuss how they would take the retake exam, since they didn't have time to think about others. She got up from the table and asked Asahi to leave the place, and so the young man followed her, under the slanted glances of Takayuki and Hakone. Walking down the hallway, the girl drank her drink and thought about how it seemed useless that Hakone would ever change her stance, but still she hoped for the best. Asahi stopped and asked the girl if she was going to be alright? But the girl explained that it was her own decision, and since Asahi was strong, she asked him to be confident. She put the drink to Asahi's chest with a smile on her face, saying that many people think he is the weakest student, and so she asked him to surprise everyone in the retake exam. Asahi said with a smile on his face that he would do as Akane said. But at the same moment, Sachi was looking at them. She looked at Asahi and noticed that the atmosphere around him was different from before. She thought that this young man could be very interesting. While in the first grade classroom, Takayuki was kicking desks out of anger as it pissed him off that Akane Yamura had become so arrogant. The bully paused and then asked his friend Yoshi Hakone if there had ever been any serious injuries or fatalities in the retake exam. The bespectacled guy confirmed Takayuki's words, saying that such things had happened, which immediately amused the bully. Hakone explained that the retest would be conducted in the Class D area, with real combat in mind, and therefore there was a possibility that there could be an incident. Takayuki Kirimura sat down on his desk and asked if it was really an accident, which, of course, startled Hakone. In any case, Takayuki wondered if such accidents would happen again this year. Oh, that damn bastard Takayuki, he's up to something extremely bad. Soon, on one of the forums, users were chatting on the topic of retaking the exam. They were wondering if the naked guy who was on the broadcast was still in school. One of the chat participants said that he was still there as the list of students is secretly published before the exams. And, as it turns out, there's a gamble every year at the exam where real people place bets on the best student. At the top of the list, of course, were Shizuka Minace and Sachi Shirahane, but Yoda Asahi was at the bottom of the list, but his winning odds were 137x. And you know, I feel like someone will still bet on Asahi and then win just a shitload of money. After a while, Asahi was already in the forest. Soon, a ferocious bear appeared behind him and pounced on the young man. Asahi noticed this monster, so he kicked it in the chin with a sharp kick of his foot, after which it fell to the ground unconscious, sticking out its tongue. The young man looked at his suit and noticed an important thing. He realized that his current suit was stronger than his previous suit. The indomitable suit has good strength, and the suit of anger has good defense. However, this suit is quickly depleting, and Asahi can feel his strength evaporating. As it turns out, the suit of anger consumes the wearer's health every second, so it can't be used for a long time. It was for this reason that the young man needed to become stronger in order to use the suit freely. Asahi decided that for a while, the indomitable suit would be his main strength. Soon the young man was called out by Akane, and the young man noticed that the girl was late. Akane apologized for her tardiness, saying that she was late for extra classes. The girl sighed heavily, saying that even though it's a military school, it's still necessary to study. And Asahi said that they were still high school students. In that case, the girl asked the young man if he took extra classes? But Asahi replied, no. Akane didn't understand why. But then the young man also remembered that Shizuka had once told him that just studying was not enough. In any case, he informed Akane that he was studying the material before going to bed. It surprised the girl, the fact that Asahi was trying so hard. At any rate, pulling out her Gatling gun from its hiding place, the girl informed Asahi that they should try harder. She explained that the coveted day of the retake exam was coming soon. Asahi understood that very well. But as the couple was chatting with each other, a silhouette appeared behind them, hiding behind a tree. At that very moment, Asahi noticed something wrong, so he grabbed the girl and jumped up, because that shot almost killed them. The girl didn't realize what was going on, but Asahi was already in a fighting stance. Akane didn't realize who it was, but ordered the man to show himself anyway. Sachi Shirahane soon came into the light, saying that Asahi had changed, figuring he wouldn't have been able to notice her attack before. Asahi stared at the blonde girl intently, then asked who she was. Those words immediately shocked the girl. In any case, Akane informed that she knew the girl. Her name was Sachi Shirahane. She is a Class A student and it is said that she is as strong as Minace Shizuka, and at the moment she was saddened by the fact that Asahi didn't recognize her. Asahi was surprised to hear a familiar name. But Sachi said that Shizuka has been acting kind of weird lately. And that's why she wants to test the young man. At that moment, Sachi made a lunge towards Asahi, but he dodged, though it wasn't easy. Soon, he grabbed the girl's spear to trigger a system error and cause lightning, thus throwing the girl off of him. But Sachi was quite strong. Using the momentum, she released energy from her spear, which created a powerful explosion in the ground, causing Asahi to fly upwards from that shockwave. Akane called out to the young man as she was very worried about him. As soon as Asahi got up from his knees, Sachi was already approaching him with her deadly spear. But at the same moment, the young man blocked the attack with just his hand, and then pushed the girl and her spear away. The girl smiled contentedly and then swung her spear to strike. But at the last moment she stopped her spear near Asahi's neck. She praised the young man for being on a whole other level now. She expressed that if Asahi didn't hide his abilities, he could become even stronger. The young man didn't understand what purpose this crazy girl was pursuing. The girl looked at Asahi, and then explained that all the participants in the retake exam wanted to team up with her, and she wanted to team up with someone who would be an interesting person to her. She extended her hand, saying that the young man was perfect for the role. With a smile on her face, she asked if Asahi wanted to team up, but the young man replied in the same second saying no. Sachi was still standing there smiling, and then it came to her that she didn't understand anything. The girl continued to stand there smiling and then asked Asahi, did she not hear well? She tried to say about teaming up again, but Asahi again said he wasn't going to join her team. This started to anger the pouting girl who didn't understand why he didn't want to be on a team with her. In that case, Asahi asked why Sachi thought she could team up with him if she suddenly attacked him. He expressed that she shouldn't have sought recognition through her power. Yes, Asahi was well aware that thanks to Sachi, he could easily get into a better class. However, the young man realized that no one would believe that he was able to achieve this through his own efforts. Asahi was sure that because of Sachi, he would be hated even more. The young man really wants to join the guild, and so he must achieve their recognition on his own. Oh, our boy is growing up, and I'm very happy about it. Sachi looked at the young man, closed her eyes and walked the other way, saying Asahi is very interesting. Turning around, she told the young man to get up soon, for she would be waiting for him. Soon the girl left, leaving Asahi and Akane alone. Akane, by the way, was unhappy that the young man had lost this opportunity, for they could have easily gotten into another class. But Asahi felt that Akane wasn't listening to him at all. He told the girl that Sachi never once looked at her, as she was only concerned with her own interest. It was then that it came to the girl's attention that Asahi was right. The young man explained that Sachi shouldn't be expected to work as a team, and therefore Akane wouldn't be able to get a high rating on the exam. Those words made the girl feel embarrassed again, and in that case, if Asahi says so, then it means that the young man's words are correct. Asahi started thinking about Sachi Shirahan from Class A. That girl had everything: speed, defense, and strength. The young man realized that he lost on all criteria. Plus, Sachi was still lenient to him, and even with a suit of anger, he still wouldn't stand a chance. Soon, the young man started checking his list of costume upgrades. He was a little excited as he became a little stronger, however he realized that he couldn't make up for his current situation. Soon the young man noticed that the updated list was getting longer. He noticed something interesting. The system reported that he had received an award, audience. Soon, people from various guilds gathered in the building of the monster task force from the other world. Defense Minister Gon Lin Ping inquired about the investigation into the appearance of the new portal. All the important people from all the guilds had gathered at this place. It was the head of the Phoenix Guild, S rank, Kagwara Jinji. Guild Master Delras, S rank, Sholi Truman. Guild Master Victory, S rank, Shio Mizui. The defense minister asked the guild heads if they had noticed anything. Kagwara Jinji said that he hadn't noticed anything strange, and besides, he too was trying desperately to close the portal. Shio Mizui felt that if Jinji knew about it beforehand, he should have reported it, and Shali Truman was in agreement. Kagwara Jinji expressed that if he had purposely covered it up, he would be out of a job. Shali Truman expressed her displeasure about not wanting to work with scum like Jinji. This, of course, hurt the asshole's feelings, but the Secretary of Defense still asked for quieter behavior. He inquired if there had been any changes in the last 6 months. Unfortunately, no one had ever reported any news. Therefore, Guild Master Gifted, S rank, Kyoto Kureha, reported that the intervals between portal appearances were getting shorter and shorter. Everyone suddenly became quiet and began to think about a plan of action. The head of the Victory Guild reported that they could handle it now, but what next? Shali Truman agreed with her colleague, because they might have problems soon. The Minister of Defense remembered that a great catastrophe might happen when hordes of monsters came out of the portals and a huge number of people died. Kyoto Kureha observed that the monsters had become much stronger than before, and when the next great catastrophe came, the damage would be enormous. The minister realized that there was an urgent need for countermeasures. In that case, Jinji suggested that suitable candidates were needed. The minister confirmed Jinji's words, and therefore asked about the next generation's training status. In that case, the headmaster of Valkyrie School at Sushi Tsushima reported that they were currently producing more resource than they had anticipated. Plus, they would be having a retake exam soon, and Shali thought that it must be a lot of fun. Jinji inquired if there were any students to look out for. In that case, the principal reported that there were Sachi Shirahane and Shizuka Minace among the freshmen. The principal reported that he has high hopes for them. Minace is able to freely control the life energy of her artifact, Lunioner. Sachi wields an artifact called Jeborg, which is capable of generating explosive energy. The head of the Victory Guild was extremely surprised that these girls have such artifacts with tremendous attack power. And the head of the Delras Guild wanted Shizuka Minace to be in her guild. But Jinji wondered if there was no one else? In that case, the principal said that he would be able to see for himself at this exam. But still, Jinji wished they had students who were good at defense. The principal asked, why? In that case, Jinji informed that the position had been vacant for a long time, and they had been unable to find someone suitable for a long time. Soon, the maliciously smirking assholes started talking about the son of their chief defender, Yota Asahi, who had enrolled in Valkyrie's school and who might very well take the former defender's place. He inquired if this Yuno was attending their school. There was no way Shuli could remember a young man with that name, in which case Kyoto Kureha remembered the same one who had gotten completely naked on the broadcast. At the same time, Shuli also remembered about the young man who couldn't master his artifact. In that case, the principal informed that Yota Asahi was still in school, but Jinji couldn't understand that boy. Jinji assured the principal that Asahi is well aware that he owns an incompetent artifact, but still continues to fight. That's why Jinji thinks Asahi is an idiot. But the headmaster informs Jinji that that's not exactly true. Jinji gave the old man a leering look, and the principal informed him that Yota Asahi could become an outstanding person.